Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. David Schwartz, who of course is Ripple's CTO and co-creator of the XRP ledger, says that quantum computing will threaten XRP and the crypto markets at large. And he even slaps a timeline down on this. So here's the headline from Daily Hodl covering all this. Ripple executive says quantum computing will threaten Bitcoin, XRP, and crypto markets. Here's when. So doomsday scenario type stuff. Well, maybe not necessarily, but understandably, there's been recognition of the threat of quantum computing for many, many years, and there's certainly an understanding that it could become functionally a notable problem. So we'll look into this. And this topic, I don't think it's come up in crypto media news since when? Last time I could recall is like fall. But I don't think I've ever seen any sort of writings or videos where David Schwartz is talking about this, so I was eager to learn more about his perspective on this. I've also got this article, unrelated, so I'm going to save it for the later part of the video, but it comes from Daily Hodl also. And it's titled, Federal Court Rules Bitcoin is Form of Money Under DC Financial Services Law. So there's been all sorts of fascinating developments in the world of crypto. But the most notable thing, which I've covered over the last couple days, is, of course, banks can now legally, the federal government in the United States says, yep, banks, you can absolutely custody cryptocurrency for customers. That's a major development. And so we just keep seeing over time the steady evolution and maturity of this asset class. But before we go any further, if you would please delicately tap that like button, I would certainly appreciate it. And also go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel, because if you do, we could be friends. Maybe even best friends. We'll just see where this takes us. So let's jump in here. Ripple CTO David Schwartz says quantum computing poses a serious threat to the future of cryptocurrency. On the Modern CTO podcast, Schwartz says quantum computing will break the cryptographic algorithms that keep cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and XRP, as well as the entire internet at large, secure. Which is why if the doomsday scenario were to come to pass, it would be like the end of the world, basically. Well, you could imagine what it would do to the logistic functionality of the entire global economy, right? If all of this were compromised. Potentially gigantic. So not just that your cryptocurrencies would effectively become worth nothing because nobody would be able to trust it. Everything would stop because everything is all on the webernets these days. But here's a quote. From the point of view of someone who is building systems based on conventional cryptography, quantum computing is a risk. We are not solving problems that need powerful computing like payments and liquidity. The work that the computers do is not that incredibly complicated, but because it relies on conventional cryptography, very fast computers present a risk to the security model that we use inside the ledger. Algorithms like SHA-2 and ECDSA, elliptic curve cryptography, are sort of esoteric things deep in the plumbing, but if they were to fail, the whole system would collapse. The system's ability to say who owns Bitcoin or who owns XRP or whether or not a particular transaction is authorized would be compromised. A lot of people in the blockchain space watch quantum computing very carefully. And what we're trying to do is have an assessment of how long before these algorithms are no longer reliable. Right, and so for those of you that were unaware of this potential threat, perhaps your mind is like, brain explode, and I completely understand, but this is a real thing, and it's been on the radar for some time. It's just that there are many people out there that, and it's outside the scope of this video. It's not something I prepared for, and it's not within the discussion here specifically, but as far as what can you do about it, well, there are potential fixes, so I will ease your mind a little bit. It's kind of a question of, are they going to be created and implemented in time? Now, Schwartz says he thinks developers have at least 8 years until the technology, which leverages the properties of quantum physics to perform fast calculations, become sophisticated enough to crack cryptocurrency. And here's another quote from David Schwartz. I think we have at least 8 years. I have very high confidence that it's at least a decade before quantum computing presents a threat. But you never know when there could be a breakthrough. I'm a cautious and concerned observer, I would say. And then the piece continues. Schwartz says crypto coders should closely follow the latest public developments in quantum computing. But he's also concerned about private efforts from the government. And here's the final quote from David Schwartz in this piece. The other fear would be if some bad actor, some foreign government, secretly had quantum computing way ahead of what's known to the public. Depending on your threat model, you could also say, what if the NSA has quantum computing? Are you worried about the NSA breaking your payment system? While some people might realistically be concerned, it depends on your threat model. If you're just an average person or an average company, you're probably not going to be a victim of this. Let's say hypothetically some bad actor had quantum computing that was powerful enough to break things. They're probably not going to go after you unless you are a target of that type of actor. As soon as it's clear that there's a problem, these systems will probably be frozen until they can be fixed or improved. So most people don't have to worry about it. Man, that's I respected David Schwartz so much, but I have to tell you, I'm still a little concerned despite this, because look, even if you're not a target and he's talking about, okay, it can be frozen, this or that, here's what you need to consider, though. And this is where I'd probably push back just a little bit, even though admittedly, of course, David Schwartz is more on this topic than I do, but just in terms of what it would do to overall confidence of individuals and businesses that, for instance, hold XRP. Or pick your cryptocurrency, but in this case, it's an XRP-centric channel, damn it, so I'm talking about XRP. I don't know what that would do. So even if you freeze the system, my gosh, I can only imagine what that would do. I don't suppose it would be necessarily good. So hopefully, there can be fixes. Like once this forward progression in terms of quantum computing is like, once it gets to the point where it's a real notable thing, which seems inevitable from what everybody's saying, I just hope that there's something in place prior to that. It's not like we're being reactive, but rather proactive in terms of approach to watching this thing. But just scary stuff, kind of, but there's always a fix for everything. I don't believe the whole world's going to fall apart. I just don't know what this is going to look like specifically. So I appreciate that David Schwartz is saying, don't be too alarmed. For me personally, didn't help a whole lot. You can tell me if it helped you a bit, but I'm just thinking, I don't really know. I'm not convinced. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm not convinced. All right, into the next piece now. Federal court rules Bitcoin as form of money under DC Financial Services law. A federal judge has declared that Bitcoin meets the definition of money under Washington, D.C.'s Money Transmitters Act. And so the new definition of money, therefore, it must be that it can take days for settlement to occur with this new form of money. It has to be incredibly energy and inefficient, really just clunky and slow. So they basically redefined what money is. I'm teasing. I'm just making fun of Bitcoin. And I do appreciate Bitcoin. That's why I say I'm just teasing here. But in the case of the United States versus Harmon, which accuses Larry Dean Harmon of running an illegal Bitcoin mixing operation, Chief Judge Beryl A. Howell says Bitcoin is a form of money. And here's a quote. The term money, as detailed below, commonly means a medium of exchange, method of payment, or store of value. Bitcoin is all these things. It's funny, so it's all these things, method of payment, even though functionally, nobody's using Bitcoin for that, but okay. Harmon, the owner of the underground Bitcoin trading platform Helix, is facing charges of conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, operating an unlicensed money transmitting business, and engaging without a license in the business of money transmission. Harmon, who filed for a motion to dismiss charges based on his interpretation of the December 2019 indictment against him, argued that the Money Transmitters Act, or MTA for short, did not define Bitcoin as money, disqualifying his service as a money transmitting business. Judge Howell, however, relied heavily on the common use of the word money to conclude that Bitcoin meets the qualifications. According to court documents published by Bloomberg, authorities say Helix customers used the service to exchange approximately 354,000 Bitcoin, the equivalent of approximately $311 million, to mask their darknet purchases of drugs, guns, or illegal transactions from law enforcement between 2014 to 2017. The court has refused Harmon's motion to return the 160 Bitcoin seized by the government. So, interesting. I mean, really just the part as far as Bitcoin being declared effectively money, whatever you think about the rest of the story, in theory that could be that could be positive for the space. Because here's to me, anything that gets the whole idea of cryptocurrencies outside of this light of it's just some sort of thing that's for nefarious actors with ill intent for who knows what purpose. Like that whole image of cryptocurrency, anything that we can do to push back against that, to me, is probably going to fall under the category of notably positive. But as far as the actual maturation of this asset class, and in addition to that, reasonable views from the public who is at large just uninformed, I mean, I think that's going to take a long time. I still insist it's very early days. And that's evidenced by a lot of things, not just the fact that people are still working out actual use cases for cryptocurrency, but there's a frenzy around the asset class in terms of price action, even after over a decade. There's all sorts of stuff here. So to me, it's super clear that this is early days, but that's part of what makes it so exciting to be here, in my humble opinion. But what do you think about all of this? Are you afraid of quantum computing? Is Bitcoin actually money? Feel free to drop a comment below, because I do love hearing from all of you. But that's it for this one. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!